We dive straight into session 2, leadership discussions, all-rounders. So, the all-rounders joining us, Chirag Buch, I'm not sure I got your surname pronunciation right, pardon me if I got it wrong. Global Service Delivery Leader, Mercer. Chirag has overall 30 plus years of post-qualification experience and has worked in organizations like SE2, BDO India, Infosys, AXA, WNS, Sandoz, and so on prior to joining Mercer. His expertise includes setting up of and running large outsourcing and captive shared service centers across India, Latin America, Eastern Europe, and Asia Pacific. Warm welcome to you, Chirag. Please join us here. And the second panelist is Lalitha Indrakanti, CEO, Jaguar Land Rover Technology and Business Services India. Spanning 28 years, Lalitha's professional career has centered on strategic delivery of IT services, digital transformations, and global capacity centers, having begun at IBM and SAP. Her industry credentials are firmly reflected in her more recent roles of Head of Global Business Operations for Inca Group and MD and Country Leader for Cargill Business Services India. Welcome, Lalitha. Nice to have you here. Please join us. Tarun Aahi, VP and Head Group SSC, Jindal Steel and Power Limited. Tarun is a chartered accountant by profession and a change leader by nature. He is an enterprising business leader with a perfect blend of consulting and operation, strong expertise in disruption management, business transformation, digital enablement. Currently, he is the Vice President and heads the group's Shared Services Center of Jindal Steel and Power Limited in Gurugram. Please join us here, Tarun, and a warm welcome to you. Kaustubh Deshpande, Head of Capabilities, Transformation and Innovation, Societe Generale Global Solutions Center. Hope I got that right. Kaustubh Deshpande is a seasoned financial services leader with a corporate and entrepreneurial career spanning 2 decades. He thrives at the crossroads of business and technology, unlocking new avenues of growth and value for global capability centers. While navigating diverse global senior leadership roles, Kaustubh not only scaled multi-million-dollar business lines, but also catalyzed the evolution of global capability centers into mature transformation hubs. We welcome Kaustubh Deshpande. Please join us here. And moderating this session is Shalini Pillay, India leader, GCCs and board member, KPMG. Shalini leads the Global Capability Center segment nationally and oversees the services KPMG India provides to this segment. Prior to this role, she was the office managing partner for Bangalore, overseeing all of KPMG's business in the region and responsible for representing the firm in the market, especially for all large strategic client accounts. Welcome, Shalini, and it's yours for the next 50 minutes. Leadership discussions all round.
Thank you. And a very good morning to everyone here. A pleasure to be joining you today. A big thank you to Rakesh and the Shared Services Forum for the invitation and opportunity. And I'm looking forward to an engaging conversation here. Before we start, firstly, again, I'd like to start with compliments to the SSF Forum for the theme of the event, which is actually Global Enterprise Services Conclave, and what's going to be that next leap of becoming a truly global enterprise partner. I think the theme itself is wonderful because it, in some sense, takes away from this GCC term, which of course we all use and NASSCOM has branded, but we're all, many of us actually looking for a better terminology because of what GCCs bring in. The minute you call yourself a global capability center, center by definition creates a certain connotation and a divide between what is the global organization and what we are establishing here. So I love the theme and global enterprise, which is really what we're going to talk about. I must also make a humble submission. While I enjoy the game of cricket, I don't understand a lot of the technicalities. So and I'm going to lean on some of my panelists here to bring in the right analogies with what all-rounders mean in our environment versus what the game is demanding. I certainly know that the game has gotten a lot more technical, whether it is the weather and the pitch or whether it is the different styles and formats and the nuances of what players bring to the team. I think it's certainly gotten a whole lot more complex, as has our world. So before we start, if I was to kind of set a little context and a preamble to our discussion today, global capability centers, shared service centers, GICs, the GBS model, the offshoring and outsourcing industry is not new. It has seen an evolution over 3 decades. I personally go back to, I think, the late 90s when I set up my first shared service center for a client of ours. Fundamentals remain the same, but the model has evolved significantly. We still have technology at the absolute core, which makes remote processing possible, and that's really at the core of what makes this model a reality. The model itself, the operating model, has seen a whole lot of changes. It's no longer about global players wanting to set this up on their own. You're working with a very rich ecosystem. We touched upon some of it in the previous panel from a talent perspective, but today, whether it's technology partners, whether it's other service providers who bring in a very competitive, compelling proposition, whether it's talent itself and working with academia, with research service providers, with startup ecosystem, there's a lot that's happening which brings in a very different richness to what the model itself is. Technology is changing at a pace that we cannot even imagine. I didn't hear the term Gen AI come up here, but today you look around and everyone's talking Gen AI. There are a handful of real use cases, but it's evolving. There is conversation to say what's going to happen to the GCC model in years to come. Should India sit up and get worried about this opportunity disappearing, as Gen AI might make a lot more possible nearer shore? So technology and the pace at which that's changing is going to get us thinking of what will our model look like, not just in the next 12, 18 months, but maybe even sooner. So there's a whole lot there. The previous session alluded to the war for talent. I must say there's a little sigh of relief that compared to 18 months ago, I think the war has gotten a little milder, but the model and the talent landscape is changing. What's attracting talent to your organizations is dramatically changing. It could be nuances of the hybrid working model that brings its advantages and challenges with it. It could be future skilling and what that talent needs that you have, what's that going to look like. It's the model itself. Do you necessarily need to hire or can you borrow this talent from the talent pool? So the talent landscape has become super complex. So again, and where am I going with all of this? As I look at the demands of GCCs, and today our theme is really to talk about the art and science of delivering value, and it's a leadership conversation. So we're going to touch upon what are leaders of today preparing for this future of tomorrow, where you're seeing disruption in the operating model. You're seeing technology changing at a pace that you're really going to have to figure how do you help your organization keep pace. Talent is evolving at a very, very rapid pace. The ecosystem is changing. The ways of working are not going to be the same. So as we go through this conversation, I'm going to request our panelists here to really bring this alive for us, for all of you, with examples of what is this meaning for them? How are they seeing this pan out and these dynamics pan out in their organization? How are you gearing for the future? And our topic is hence going to be on what does it take to unlock this value? What is this art and science all about? And it's really a leadership conversation. So with that context, if I could open this up and really request for views on the first topic, to say that the first subject that I'd like to open up is, in the context of this fast changing environment, if you had to narrate to us, one area that you as a leader are seeing a very strong imperative or some pressure, or one of the market dynamic that's getting you to rethink leadership, what would that be? And if you could exemplify it for us, that would be super. By the way, I'll keep changing the order in which we go, but I'm going to start from that and then request Chirag to go first to say, what is that imperative that you see as a leader for your organization?
So thank you, Shalini, for this. I would probably say few things are a given, right? I mean, I know you hear a lot on conferences that now it's no longer about the cost game and things like that. I think basics still continue. I think you mentioned that at the start, the basics continue to remain the same. Whether it was 97 when I was in WNS versus Mercer in 2023, the basics in terms of delivering cost efficiency, making sure that you drive SLA delivery, that's a given. I think what has really evolved from a leadership perspective is how do we try and push to really start owning the outcome from what our customers really expect from our side. So that's one. Second, I think the second leadership imperative, and I completely agree, we did not hear Gen AI. I think the next place for GCC or global enterprise would be in terms of how do we really try and own the whole Gen AI space, especially where we are. Then to me, that's the second imperative. And third and most importantly is, I feel, is how do we try and invest where, and we talked about building versus borrowing. We need to do both. How do we try and build our talent internally and create that particular opportunity where people can really learn new stuff, but also try and see how do we invest ahead of the curve, where we become the Gen AI or the next gen power of that. I think those I think from a leadership perspective are the three imperatives that I see from where I sit.
Okay, super. And we'll chat about them because my next question will link to some of what you just called out. But I'll request Kaustubh to give us his take on.
Sure. So for me, around 3 or 4 tenets of this, that's changing, right?
Okay.
One, I think now it's starting to become more the age of experience.
Yeah.
Right? So on one hand, there's the customer experience that's very different. I'm a part of the financial services industry, very regulated, a lot of constraints. Plus, I'm part of a French organization which also has its social constraints. Now, within that, when the customer demands are changing, how do you ensure that everybody in the organization is aware of what is changing with the customer needs, and therefore what's the response of the larger organization, and how do you associate it back to, let's say, that granular transaction that somebody is trying to do on the ground, right? Second, there's a lot of work that's happening, not just of talent, but also there's the algorithm and the platform economy that's out there, right? There are technology firms that are innovating, there are startups that are coming up. How do you stay relevant as an organization, and how do you ensure that you're not seen as just one of the outsourcing partners in your relationship with the enterprise, and therefore that value journey becomes even more important. Third, I think there is a pivotal point with all GCCs depending on their maturity on 2 aspects. One, it's not just the GCC that's delivering and doing that work. There are multiple entities within that organization who are trying to compete for that space. So the first question is, do you compete or do you collaborate? I believe it is the time for co-creation now and not trying to just create on your own. The second, which I think at some point of time we keep talking about, now to do a lot of value creation, you also need autonomy. But then what's that balance between autonomy and a strong alignment towards what's happening in the group? And I think these are the challenges that today's leaders need to grapple with and really be very, very clear on how to drive the organization.
Some great points there, and like I said, this is just the start, so we're going to touch upon some of those themes. Yes, Lalitha, your views, please.
I think very well said, Partha, because I think your leadership imperatives change with the kind of the expectations that you have on the headquarters of the organizations because of the aspirational journey that we take up as India. The way how your expectations are changing and you're asking for more, at the same time organization is also asking more of you. That is to be more of a partner, more of being a change agent in the organization and to really bring be the DNA of the organization where things come together, not in isolation and in silos. So the expectations of the organizations are also changing, and you need to really take that as your imperative to work for that.
Absolutely. We'll talk a little about the tailwinds that I believe are fueling the sector, so we'll touch upon
Absolutely.
that. Thank you, Lalitha. Yes, Shalini.
So, now I come from an Indian organization. So, if I look at comparing to, am I audible? Okay. So, now what perspective I want to bring it here is more of from an Indian organization where you are not only seen as a GCC leader, but you are also seen as how you are partnering with your business. So there was initial days where we look for KPIs, where we look for green, amber, what we deliver. But it's beyond that. Your KPIs can be green, but is it really adding value to business? If you are able to process your document or pay your document on time, whether that exceptional thing which business required where your processes can be in a structured way tilted, so that control is there, but yes, it's adding value for a business. Something which you want to perform in X days, whether your SMEs are expert to perform those things that actual customer is able to get his work done. So the essence is just not look at the operation successful. Is patient alive or dead? That's the thought process which you have to keep it while you're working on it. You cannot limit your area that, okay, these are GCC what's delivering. You have to see how it's going to end result in EBITDA terms. Similarly, if you look at the people mix, the Gen Z, they need everything quick. Now, how you ensure they are connected to that thought process of connecting with business, make them understand what is the value for business, how they can add their action and non-action impacting EBITDA for an organization. So, those are the changes which are.
Thank you, Tarun. Interesting points. I've heard value pretty much from across all of you. I would like to believe that it's now more than whether the patient is alive or dead, but you want him running at a pace and rejuvenated, and that's the role that one is really looking to play. But it comes to a very important point, because sometimes these words get used in a very broad sense, like unlocking value, delivering value, enhancing value, capturing value. And let's kind of get a little to the core to say, what does that value really mean? I mean, from 20 years ago, offshoring was cost arbitrage, labor arbitrage. But let's try and do this a little more specifically. To say, if you had to think of one new method of how are you redefining and actually more importantly measuring value, think of one metric maybe to make it as specific as possible, that how is value really being redefined in your organization? An example each would be great. To say, what does value mean for you and how are you measuring it? And I'm happy to start here, Tarun, if you're okay.
Sure. No, definitely. So when we talk about how this value change has happened, can you just repeat?
So how are you redefining value?
Oh, sure.
If you look at it and take a step back and play it over the last few years, and a metric you're using.
See, initial year when we used to look at the value, it was more of efficiency.
Yeah.
What people efficiency you can bring, what TAT reduction we can bring. That was the value driver for it. But now these things have changed it. If I give an example, when normally the process of invoice processing starts when you get an invoice. But now things have changed. We look at the GRI, we look at what is the GST impact which is there in the organization, whether my invoice is due for payment or not. If I'm able to process that and take a credit of GST, so actually the cash outflow can be stopped for 1 month, which was there for next month, I can prepone it. So actually imagine a company is having a value of 1,000 crores, where a GST impact is even 10% as 100 crore. That that 10 crore is the financial impact in a year which you can create. Unless and until we understand that as a value, it's our efficiencies, our debt reductions, our other initiatives which are hygiene. If you look at from a EBITDA point, they are very minimal. Yes, you can reduce certain headcount, you can reduce certain cost from a GCC point. But look at from an overall organization point. What is your overall revenue? What is the percentage of cost reduction which you are able to generate because of transformation and GCC versus what business impact you can bring in real money term. So that's the difference which has come.
Wonderful, and I can see that, and we'll talk a little more about the change in the model that's influencing that, but clearly you're defining impact at a much broader level. Thank you. Yeah, Lalitha.
I think first it is important to understand value has different facets.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So value is not just an enterprise level value. You have enterprise value, which is essentially probably anything that is directly, indirectly impacting your enterprise core KPIs. Right? Everything else is irrelevant. How many other metrics you measure, drive, if your enterprise core KPIs are not being met, and if you're not doing something that is not impacting that, it is absolutely irrelevant. So one part of the value is your enterprise value, what you deliver. It could be productivity, it could be EBITDA impact, it could be your net debt reduction, it could be various things based on the organizations. But I think there are other facets of the value which often people ignore. For example, the talent value, the number of global leaders you generate out of it. We are all talking about talent as a primary part of it. The number of global leaders you deliver out of your organization, the number of people who can step up and take different roles. So there is a complete set of what kind of talent are you bringing in, nurturing them, making them deliver stuff. That is another. There's another facet for value, which is an innovation index. How are you helping the organization to make strides in innovation? How are you delivering for the organization level agenda by thinking different, thinking outside the box? But I think the last and not the least important thing is also about your environmental, societal value, what you generate out of your organization. It could be ESG, it could be your corporate social responsibility. If you just go and look at any report, it talks about how much of impact either the GCCs are making, the organizations in India making, for the thing which is eventually helping the planet as well. So there are, when it is value, my only thing would be not to just restrict to enterprise value, but look at all different facets of it.
Absolutely, very well said. And sorry, I don't know if this is. I would just to build on that a little bit, and because you come from an industry which has seen another, I would say, a revolution actually, right? I mean, automobiles of tomorrow, one could argue, could just be a motherboard on wheels, which means it is the most impacted industry from a digital technology standpoint. And today I know many of you all who have engineering hubs here have your fingerprints on every element of that motherboard. So your whole operating system being done, and that's value at an entirely different level. So, I mean, the model has changed and value is truly being redefined. So, couldn't agree more with some of what you just called out. Thank you. Yes, Kaustubh.
So I'll just build on that, right?
Yeah.
I essentially define it as traditional value and non-traditional value,
Yeah.
right? The traditional value is stated on your entity, easy to measure, is expected. What we're gearing a shift towards is what I call non-traditional value. To a large extent, it's not stated very well. It's not necessarily an expectation from the enterprise that they want the GCC to step up and deliver that. And I think that is where the complexity comes in, right? You start putting in measures that are not aligned, as Lalitha said, nobody's going to start believing that narrative and the story. So you need to look at how you're contributing to the core KPIs of the organization. Yeah. A lot of times it's quite easy to look at the commercial value, which is the work that I'm doing, how is it impacting the financial books of the group, either top line, bottom line, and so on. I believe the GCCs have a significant role to play in what I call the non-commercial value, which comes from something as simple as accelerating global transformations, Something as simple as identifying a white space today that for a long period of time is being done in a certain way, and you are able to be a bit bold and going out there and saying it can be done differently, and that's the value that the firm will bring in. And third, most importantly, in regulated industries like ours, how do you anticipate the regulatory changes and the new regulations that are coming in, and how do you create an agility for businesses to respond to it in a way that's also being counted as a significant value, beyond, of course, the normal terms. So I think it's, the value description also is not the same across the organization. So in a large organization, you'll have, sets of units which are mature, which are expected to do something. There are other sets and pieces which need to deliver in some other value. I believe as leaders, that's where the challenge of balancing comes in, right? And how do you galvanize the organization?
Absolutely. You again link to the point on it being a core KPI for the global organization, there being an end-to-end transformative view. In fact, the old days of offshoring and outsourcing, accounts payable, receivable, GL have gone. Today everyone talks end-to-end. The minute you look at a source-to-pay cycle or an order-to-cash cycle, you are actually impacting more business. So transformation from that perspective, great point, and I love the point of value through the agility you're building into the organization, which is actually, you can't really put a number to it, but it's so key. Thank you for that, Kaustubh. Yes, Chirag.
So everybody said everything, right? So I'll probably give the Mercer example. So
Yes.
Mercer's business is health, wealth and career, right? So those are the three businesses. Of course, career is the most known, especially in this part of the world, because somewhere down the line, I am sure we are responsible for your salary, low or high, but we are responsible for your salary. And on that particular piece, so one of the things that we've actually said, defining value is from a GCC perspective today, from a career perspective, two major products are actually owned by my team, which is the remuneration data solution. So any employee, what you call compensation benchmarking survey, the product development and management actually gets done by my team. You don't need to be in person, right? So we do that, what you call ourselves, in terms of identifying parameters, looking at matching job descriptions, and making sure. That's where AI has a significant role to play. But how do we try and move away from the human interface to match, rather than trying to look at what you call an AI trying to do that for you. So that's 40% of Mercer Careers revenue. The second one is global mobility. Looking at, okay, if you are in India, you have to go to US, what's the differentiators, lifestyle allowances that you need to make and stuff like that. Again, that product development and management is owned by my team. So you're actually pushing away from just delivering a service to really, like I first said, owning a particular outcome. And last but not the least, and I think Lalitha made me think about it, we also support the Office of the Chief Investment Officer on the wealth. So all the pension plans, where it needs to be invested. So we actually have an index that my team monitors to say in terms of, are these the right organizations to invest purely from an ESG perspective, right? And in terms of what sort of management they are, what sort of ethics and values they have, and most importantly on the sustainability, right? So we've actually gone in terms of the value is in terms of how do we try and move it from just being a cost center to really owning the product development and management and ensuring that you are there in front of the marketplace, right, in terms of what happens. So that's where I would define the value.
Thank you for that, Chirag. In fact, I'm surprised we didn't touch upon the so-called COE model, which is what you've really been alluding to. Because this next phase of evolution for GCCs is all about global centers of excellence, and we know that we have a whole bunch where global roles, global functions, global products are being run out of here. So I think a fantastic point. And that actually is a great segue into another theme that I was getting into. And now what we're going to use the next 10 minutes to quickly go over is a very crisp, little better than a rapid fire, so little more than a single 2 words. But I want to pick on themes that leaders are going to have to steer through as you define the model of the future and as you enable your global organizations. And the first theme really there was going to be about building deep capabilities, and what you just spoke of is a great segue into that. So what I want you all to now touch upon is what does it take to drive leadership to create or touch upon these elements. And maybe I'll let you start with that, Chirag, since you touched upon it. Because leadership to build deep capabilities, what does that take?
So first and foremost, I firmly believe, right? Please do not call me cheap. I hate it. I hate somebody calls me that we are a low-cost center. And that's where I am taking the ownership of leading the Mercer initiative on building next Gen AI capability in my center, right? So that's something that I'm firmly after it. That's my, in terms of building deep capabilities on it. Gen AI, it should be a Mercer global service delivery invention.
So the pivot around the skill and the talent and not around the cost.
Absolutely.
That's really what you're saying to us.
Very well said. Thank you.
Okay, got it. All right, Lalitha, I'm going to jump to you because you touched upon it on managing stakeholders. End of the day, the success of this model, quite often one argues that the purse strings are held onshore, the decisions get taken onshore. While a lot of that is changing, but hence there's the challenging act of balancing global expectations, stakeholder expectations, the new demands. What does it take to lead in that context?
I think answer is very simple, having a real dialogue, right? I think it's fundamentally as simple as that. But I think, more often than not, some of the global GDS, GCC leaders are acting as the threats within the enterprise as well.
Yeah.
Because, let's all accept enterprise is a lot more siloed than what we have here. Here, there is a lot more understanding of what each others are doing. So, more often than not, you see the GDS leaders building that threat within the enterprise in terms of talking to different stakeholders who probably might be sitting in their own islands, in terms of either building a common capabilities, in terms of building a common solutions. There could be many things like that. But I think it is, in my, what I say is bringing the organization together is a very important aspect in terms of stakeholder management, in terms of, giving the inside-out view and outside-in view is very important in stakeholder conversations.
So beautifully said, and in fact, I would say it's not without reason that we see so many technology centers being set up, because if you start creating your digital nerve center here and you're doing your platformization, your end-to-end data structure integration from here, that end-to-end view is what you can facilitate. So I think very well put in terms of pulling the global organization together. And in fact, I'm going to move to you, Kaustubh. You come from an organization that's been around for a while, that has innovated, that has, you touched upon it, the value you have delivered. So tell us a little about what does it take to lead when you are working in parallel with an ecosystem that is evolving, that can contribute in a big way. So what does leadership in that context mean?
See, I think it starts with a leader realizing that you don't have to do it alone.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that is the biggest, leap of faith that a leader has to do, right? In India especially, we pride ourselves in creating things by ourselves, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be created, stand by us. And for me, leadership, the first chasm to jump over is this.
Yeah.
Second, it's also about investing in that ecosystem, and you need to look at it from both lenses. Internally, for example, we invest a lot on what we call internal startups. So we focus on what are the problems of the firm. We galvanize hackathons and other elements internally. We invest in groups of people who want to have entrepreneurial stints within the organization to create startups, and those startups get sponsored globally, and that then get, sort of become mainstream of business. On the other hand, we are also leveraging our strength on technology. We are creating technology advisory boards for the CIOs and so on. So there's a strong ecosystem that you can create, which not just creates the value, but also keeps the talent engaged. Second, you look externally, there's just a lot happening, right? There are startups, both fintech, regtech, and others, which you can leverage. And this is where you need to start thinking a bit differently. It's not just about engaging them, looking for a solution and bringing them in, but it's working with them over a period of time to see how they can adapt to your technology infrastructure, how can they solve your problems and embracing them. Then there's also this whole concept of academia, which I believe today is very under-leveraged. So how do you look at academia and try to solve problems for the future, look at research on areas that are not tapped yet. For example, we deal with lot and huge data sets, in our organization, and we realized over a period of time that K-graphs or knowledge graphs is a solution that can be explored, but underdeveloped. And we started working with academia to try to see how we could solve that. So this ecosystem, if you start investing in, and probably an example at some point of time you could give, it allows you to create a value at a very different point of time. So it's not immediate gratification, but it's saying I need to invest, reshape it today so that I can create the value tomorrow.
Absolutely. So some great takeaways. Firstly, the recognition that don't try and do it all yourself. A lot goes into that because we've seen organizations that have tried to do it all themselves and not got, it's about, if you walk alone, you can walk far, but if you walk together.
It's about the pace.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And in fact, let me come to you, Tarun, because you touched upon value in a very different context. But when you're constantly keeping an eye on this value, what does leadership mean in terms of reminding your organization of that value, what it takes to unlock that value? How do you get your whole team on the same page, aligned to that ask?
No, important point. And before I start, see, the values start in our organization from looking at when we set up this center, moving work from tier 3 cities in India to a tier 1 or tier 2 city. It means I have a negative labor arbitrage. So the first step is to look at what is the business value I'm going to create through SSC. By whether transforming our process or whether providing a customer support. So if I talk about a team is aligned in a way, we believe in extreme ownership. We have a value as an organization value as extreme ownership.
Right.
And then when we talk about connecting to our team, so we have a very good approach of 411. Now this 411 talks about, normally we set up our AOP, our plans and set that up, give the goal to people, objective setting done, and then we look at review, some on quarterly, some on yearly, some on monthly. But our 411 concept is what you want to create for 1 year. And then it comes down to what you want to create in that 1 month. And then it comes down to what you want to do in the 4 weeks of that month. And then each leader religiously, this has been created a track process, each leader connect with their team on discussing what are the 5 key points of that week. So basically the value which you are planning, long-term planning, it comes to mid-term to short-term, to a level that what you are going to deliver in this 1 week. And this is being tracked out. Every week there's a calendar with each employee, manager and employee, and it is being reviewed what was planned for last week, what we have done now. So that's the process which is being built up within the organization, whereby we connect our team to drive value for the organization. Second, because SSC is delivering value or working on transformation, SSC is seen as a strategic center of excellence which support overall organization to transform processes to bring value for the organization. So yes, there are projects, initiatives which are in plants, but there is a responsible person from shared service to drive that. So I believe that's the way we quantify the value.
No, thank you for that. In fact, you reminded me that what you have as a challenge is when you talk of a domestic shared services environment, a lot of us have the luxury of looking at labor arbitrage between onshore and offshore, and I thought you made a brilliant point on the negative cost arbitrage that you started with, and I can only imagine the pressure on value and the need for you to adopt a 411 kind of strategy. So I think really, really well put. I am conscious of time, like you all heard the bell chime already. There were a few other themes, but we're going to have to park. I do believe we've covered it. We wanted to touch upon leadership from a transformation and an integration perspective, from a disruption and innovation standpoint, but I do believe our panelists have touched upon them already. I am going to go through one rapid fire and very quick one, because what you've certainly heard are a bunch of all-rounders who are juggling between global stakeholder management, technology and innovation, shaping an ecosystem, managing talent, keeping track of value, pulling all of this together in an environment where, while there are some fantastic tailwinds on global transformation, EBITDA improvement, so on and so forth, they're also dealing with headwinds in terms of the pace of innovation, the pace at which the talent landscape is throwing challenges. So clearly a bunch of all-rounders who are successfully steering their organization. But the rapid fire question is, what is the one thing you would want to do to create your next bunch of all-rounders in terms of global leaders who you think are going to steer the ship going forward? Chirag?
So build a succession pipeline from within the organization who understands the business that we are in.
Super. Okay. Thank you. Kaustubh?
I'll just say that, in the corollary of cricket, if you can take 10 seconds.
Please.
It's not just all-rounders like a Kapil in the 1983 World Cup we need. I think we also need what is called the 360-degree leader. So you need to combine an all-leader like an AP de Villiers if you're following cricket very closely. So you need leaders who not only are multifunctional but also have the ability to look around and do it. I believe one of the key steps to do that is start creating mini or micro and entrepreneurial systems within your organization where you can teach these leaders and groom them on how to run a business, look at a business, do global delivery and so on. I think
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
I would go back to his earlier answer, don't try and do it all yourself. Give them situations, give them the stage to perform. Put them in the tough situations, they will fail sometimes. Be ready to accept that failure or mentor and move on. That's the only way to create leaders.
Thank you, Lalitha. Yes, Tarun.
I would say we have to follow a 20-80 approach. What are those 20% of people whom you want to create as a hyper? Create a structured plan around them, how you want to groom them as a leader.
Yeah.
Make them like a SSC head. They are responsible for all the processes for respective business or respective location. Groom them so that they can get ready for next level.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And truth be told, while our theme was all-rounders, we're going to need those deep functional experts. Not everyone can do it all, but I think this was a context to bring the many facets of what leadership is going to demand and have a conversation around that. So thank you to each one of you for bringing it alive with those examples. I know time's up, it's flashing loud before us, but I don't know if we have time for a question or two. If not, we could chat over the tea coffee. Anyone, any thoughts, any questions? Yes, please. Just
Maybe just one question?
Okay, sure, yeah.
Right, so thank you, very stimulating session, by far one of the most engaging till now, for me at least. The question I have, any one of the panelists can take this. While we are on this journey of value creation, where we are moving clearly from efficiency, effectiveness to experience, what I see is also costs are increasing, right? To the extent that the cost to serve is now from India as comparable to some of the locations in Europe. Yeah? In your organizations, how are you coping with this dilemma? And it'll be good if you could develop it, how you were able to convince your stakeholders that this is still a good place to invest and from where you can deliver service.
All right, anyone, whoever wants to go, take that.
I can take a bit of that. So we are based out of Europe. In a way, there is a perception that while the costs are increasing, the arbitrage is really going down. We did a deep dive study in the industry and we are very clear that at least in 2030, the significant advantage of cost arbitrage is here to stay. But we're also conscious that that's a constant dialogue that continues to happen. Every year when you're looking at the financial trajectory of the cost center, and therefore it's more important for us to start now looking at the cost to value ratio, saying, okay, if you're spending so much in driving this cost center, here's an impact that's much beyond the arbitrage. I think that conversation is starting to happen a lot more.
I would absolutely second that. It is a cost to value ratio, right? In terms of for the same amount of money, what you get out of India is still uncomparable with anywhere else in the world.
And just to track that value and create a confidence that shared service not just the basic looking for a cost reduction. The value which is being derived should be showcased and it should be convinced for reinvestment of that value. And what is the additional value we can create with that reinvestment? That chart needs to be explained.
hope you got the answer. So pivot is increasingly on value, and if I may just add to say the scale of what India offers is still unparalleled, and it will continue to be so in my view. But so it's combination of scale of talent
And just last thing I want to quickly add. So as a value, we are reaching to our organization that when you create a small business, new business, because they are diversifying, why you need a CXO? Shared Service Center can be a virtual CFO, virtual CHRO. That is the real value.
All right.
Thank you very much all panelists and Shalini for very articulately steering that session. Thanks a lot. And for the thank you mementos, I'd like to invite Sunil Sayal, Region CFO and GBS Nokia, to please come and offer a memento to Chirag. In the meanwhile, could Ruma Kishore also be ready just in the interest of time? Ruma Kishore, Director, Digital Transformation, Customer Experience, Unilever, to please come here to give a memento to Lalitha. And Puneet Gupta, please be ready so we save time for the next memento. Puneet Gupta, Senior Vice President, Enterprise Service Operations, Quintes Global, to give a memento to Tarun Aahi. And could Kaushik Krishnan request Kaushik Krishnan, Head GBS of Ekaterra Service, a Lipton Teas and Infusions Company, for a memento to Kaustubh. And Nitin Suvarna, co-founder Digitop, Digital Transformation, to please come up. Nitin Suvarna to Shalini. Thank you once again, all the all-rounders. We'll now take a very short tea break. Let's try and limit it to 10 minutes. You could bring your tea and coffee with you in the hall so that we're ready for the next session. We're running slightly late. Thank you.